Welcome to the Through Faith and Grace podcast. I am your host, Gauthier, here to answer your questions about Christianity, share evangelism tips, and talk about how Jesus changes everything. This is your invitation to stay. All of the links and resources are in the description. You can also go to gauthier.com. That should have everything that you're looking for. There's another way to do life, and it's by following Jesus. I hope you enjoy today's episode. If you've been listening to this podcast long enough, you know there's a book I commonly reference. It's called I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist by Frank Turek and Norman Geisler. It was either the first or second book on my Christian apologetics journey. It's a pretty easy read for someone who wants an introduction to this outside evidence that points to the Christian God. I would highly recommend it. Broadly speaking, this is the flow of the book. Does God exist? If yes, then miracles are possible. Is the New Testament reliable? The New Testament is the second half of the Bible. That's the part where Jesus comes in. If yes, if the New Testament is reliable, did Jesus claim to be God? If yes, well, did Jesus prove to be God? If yes, then the Christians got it right. Now, to be fair, my reading comprehension is a little poor. Same with my memory, so maybe I missed part of this book. But I just didn't like that jump. It goes from proving the existence of God and then immediately into proving Jesus is that God. Like, whoa, wait a second. Like, how can we go from proving that some sort of creator is called for and then immediately jumping to Christianity? I didn't like that. I don't know, maybe you can relate. I've made previous episodes on the existence of God. Every effect has some sort of cause. Like, things do not just happen on their own. They don't just form on their own. Our universe began, and with it, time, space, and matter were all brought into existence. The universe is an effect and calls for some sort of cause, the first cause, if you will. So this first cause could technically be the Judeo-Christian God, as Christians proclaim, but it could be someone else's God. It could be some sort of pink invisible unicorn, or perhaps the flying spaghetti monster, right? Like, could it be multiple gods? This is exactly what I want to look at in today's episode. Can monotheism be proven? Monotheism is the belief that there is only one God. Mono meaning one. Polytheism is the belief in many gods. Poly meaning many. How do we know this first cause was one God or multiple gods? Can monotheism be proven? No. But stay anyway. Alright, give me a chance before you completely rule out Christianity forever. Let me explain. There's not some sort of mathematical equation that would point to monotheism being true and would eliminate any sort of doubt that you have, like, moving forward. Like, in the same way, we cannot prove theism or atheism exists, at least not by using some sort of mathematical equation. The Judeo-Christian God, multiple gods, another God, or even no God, you are going to have to take a leap at some point. Like, in whatever you believe in, you're going to have to take a leap. When I started my journey digging into this evidence, my goal was not to prove that the religion my family followed and raised me on was the best way to live life. I was simply seeking truth. What do we know about the universe? What can math, history, philosophy, science, and religion tell us? What is the most accurate representation of how everything came to be? Christian friend, I think the easiest way to make a great case for monotheism is by pointing to Jesus himself. But I'll come back to this. There are some common arguments for the existence of a monotheistic God. I want to talk about two. First, we have the moral law argument. It goes something like this. If there is a transcendent objective moral standard, there must be a transcendent metaphysically sufficient creator of that standard. Therefore, there is a transcendent metaphysically sufficient creator of the objective moral standard. Now you might be thinking, well, this assumes that morality is objective, but you hear it all the time that morality is relative, isn't it? It's quite difficult to find someone who actually lives out this idea that morality is relative. If morality is relative, there is no such thing as good or evil. It's all relative. So any disgusting act is acceptable without a standard. Like Hitler and Mother Teresa are one and the same without a moral standard. Both decided to dance to the tune of their DNA. But as I say that, and as you hear that, that doesn't sit well with us. So morality must be objective. Otherwise, we couldn't label things as good or evil. But we do know, we do see, we do observe goodness and evil within our world. This points to a monotheistic God, because if there is one objective, transcendent moral standard, it can only have been created by this one being. In other words, if there were several transcendent beings, there could not be one moral standard, but instead moral dissonance. I believe it makes more sense for there to be one God, based on what we know about the moral law. Could it have been one God or several gods? We can also turn to the cosmological argument that I touched on in the beginning. What is it that we know and what makes the most sense? The cosmological argument is simply the universe is an effect, and because every effect must have a cause, the universe has a cause. This cause must be one God. If there were multiple gods, the universe would be in disorder. You have several creators and authorities, you would think that the universe would be less orderly. But what we see is that our universe demonstrates great order, which makes the existence of one God more logical. It's more reasonable to believe that there is only one God because it's less complicated. This goes back to Aristotle, I believe. It is a point in logic to prefer a simpler explanation over the more complicated one. In the beginning, our universe was created. Time, space, and matter, we're all born into existence, meaning that this creator must be outside of those things. In other words, the author of the universe is eternal, non-spatial, and immaterial. Since he is infinite in his existence, he cannot have parts. Parts cannot be added to reach infinity. If God's existence is not just a part of him, then he must have infinite existence. Therefore, there cannot be two infinite beings, for one would have to differ from the other. God is the standard by which everything else will be measured. He is perfect. It would be impossible for God to be imperfect, because that would mean that another standard had found flaws in him, something greater, something higher. So that's not the case, man. God is perfect. And since God is a perfect being, there cannot be a second God, for they would have to differ in some way. And to differ from complete perfection is to be less than perfect and not God. I know I don't have some sort of mathematical formula ready for you and ready to remove any sort of doubt. You're going to have to take a leap at some point. And from what I've presented, I think it's more reasonable to believe that monotheism makes more sense. But here's the thing, even if you want to say all of those cases for monotheism are weak, that's fine. Even if you say that, there's still something that's quite difficult to explain. What happened to Jesus' body? Most scholars, including Christians, non-Christians, and anti-Christians, agree on these 4 facts. Jesus of Nazareth died on a Roman cross and was laid in a tomb. That very tomb was empty Sunday morning. Several individuals, including skeptics, experienced what they took to be the resurrected Jesus. And lastly, the belief in the resurrection transformed their lives and launched a movement that altered history. What happened? Who was this Jesus? Regardless of what you believe, Jesus' body was never found. The women did not go to the wrong tomb. Jesus' body was not stolen. His resurrected body could not have been a hallucination. All naturalistic explanations fail to explain what happened. Listen, the greatest case for monotheism is Jesus himself. You can believe that a unicorn created the universe. You can believe several gods created the universe. And they implemented some sort of system so that we don't experience disorder within our world. But anyway, regardless of what you believe, Jesus' body was never found. And that shouldn't be taken lightly. Regardless of what you believe, the New Testament has proven to be accurate and reliable. Regardless of what you believe, the Christian God just so happens to share the same traits theists use to describe this first cause, the one who created the universe. What happened to Jesus' body? These naturalistic explanations do not explain the 4 facts. What about the gospel accounts? What does the Bible offer? The biblical account, on the other hand, explains all of these facts. It shares that Jesus rose from the grave because he is God himself. It is the only account that explains all that we know. When I started looking into the evidence, hoping to describe what makes the most sense, I was blown away by the Christian worldview. What is the most accurate representation of how everything came to be? The Bible answers it in this way. In the beginning, God created. I don't know what you've tried. I don't know what your life looks like right now. I don't know what your thoughts are surrounding Jesus. One of the greatest mysteries to date is what happened to Jesus' body. Naturalistic explanations fail to answer this, but there's one account that does answer it, and it's found in the Bible. It's found in the gospel of Jesus Christ. You're going to have to take a leap at some point, and I found that the gospel best explains what happened. There's another way to do life, and it's by following Jesus. The gospel offers hope. The gospel offers certainty. Jesus is the only way. Seek Jesus.